All right, and welcome to the TSG Multimedia video podcast for May 1st. Happy May Day, Dan.
Yeah, happy May Day.
And in a few more days, I'll be saying Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm a festive kind of person.
I'll drink margaritas.
I know. And he likes the expensive ones, too, right? God. So this is John, sitting with
Dan,
in case you haven't already figured it out. And we're back with the SD40-2 by Athearn build or modification or kit bash or however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And last time we were doing some work on the coupler boxes.
Yeah, the pilots. I basically took off all the unwanted detail on the pilots and mounted some Details West pilot buffers.
Right.
And then filed those out so that I could mount couplers in them because they were a little too small, the openings, and there were some adjustments that had to be made.
So what's this time going to be?
Well, on all of my builds like this, I like to use a lot of aftermarket parts. So I'm going to use a Canon cab, and I need to replace the cab sub base. I need to replace the nose. I'm going to replace some of the detail on the roof, the fans, and some other things. So in order to make room for that, I basically have to cut all that stuff off of the model.
So is it cutting off, or is it cutting off and installing?
I think if we'll try to get through all of the massacring of the shell today, and then maybe the next time we can start building it.
Look, it's trembling in fear, Dan. I can see the wires shaking over there.
Essentially, all I'm going to keep is the long hood and the sill.
Oh, wow, this is going to be barren.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let the demolition begin.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start with the dynamic brake hatch, and I'm just going to get rid of this one because Santa Fe 5126 had a newer style, and so I just need to replace this whole part.
Oh, wow. So it's wrong altogether.
Yeah. Fortunately, this comes off.
Oh, that's a relief. I thought you were going to have to demolish it with some kind of tool.
No. The dynamic brake hatch has a couple little clips on the inside. I should be able to just pry them loose.
Well, that's kind of handy. Do they make parts? Does Athearn make parts that you could replace it with? Or?
Yeah, they actually make the correct part. I just need to use that on this shell. This can be a little stubborn sometimes. Sometimes it just takes a little muscle. There.
Well, I mean, you're not going to use it anyway, so even if you snap something, it probably won't matter.
Yeah, and even if the tabs break, it's not a big deal because I'm going to glue on the new part. So there's different ways you can try to remove the fans. I like to drill them out first. So I'm going to start by drilling a little pilot hole as close to directly in the center as I can.
I thought those things just snap out.
No, these are molded into the shell. So now I'm going to drill that out with a little bit bigger bit.
A little bit bigger. Jeez, that thing's huge. It didn't take much either. Look at that.
Yeah, it's not quite centered, but that's okay. It won't matter.
You're really just trying to remove material, right?
Right. So now I'm going to switch over to my motor tool and start carving these out.
All right. That's always a fun thing to watch.
Yeah. So now I've switched to a slightly less aggressive bit in my motor tool to do a little bit finer work on this.
Okay. I think I've seen you use this one before. It's that barrel-shaped thing, huh?
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, do you lower the RPMs too?
Yeah, I don't want to melt it too much.
Yeah. I think the last time I saw you do this was on one of our weathering and detailing videos about locomotives, actually.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think it was the BN locomotive that you did. That was an SD40-2 too, wasn't it?
It was an SD40.
Oh, okay.
But I did the same thing, basically, replacing the fans.
Yeah, I remember that.
So what I usually do is to get these thin enough so that I can just break off the little excess bits around the edges with my fingers.
Yeah, it's looking pretty round there.
Yeah. I'll finish up these holes with the file. This is a file that's got a little bit of a rounded profile, so it's good for filing in holes. The idea is there's a little bit of a lip where the original fan base was.
Right, that was molded.
Right, I kind of want to stay within that.
Okay. But you want it to be gone, though, right?
Yeah, but I'll have to carve off the top of it later, but I'm just using it as a guide to make the hole.
Right, so you'll know that if it starts disappearing, you've gone too far.
Right. Okay, so I've enlarged the holes probably as much as they need to be. This is one of the fans I'm using. This is a Q fan from Detail Associates. It comes in a set of 3. It's part number 2006. And the way this fan works is it just basically sits on the outside, or sits on top of the...
On that flat surface, right?
Yeah. It doesn't... Like the Canon fans have a lip that actually recesses and sits in the hole.
Yeah, I remember that from the Weathering and Detailing Locomotives video.
But this design of a fan has a flared base, and it just sits on top of the hole. So you don't want to make the hole bigger than the fan.
Yeah.
So all I really need to do now is to trim off this excess stuff that's sticking up.
Yeah. What are you going to use for that?
I'm going to use a chisel blade like this.
See, now, but you could, if you wanted to, probably use sandpaper, right?
Well, I will use sandpaper, but I'm going to start with the chisel blade to get...
That gets the big pieces?
That gets the big pieces. And I'm also going, while I'm at it, I'm going to take off this molded on grab iron.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to take off these little molded on lift ring things, because I'm going to put some actual lift rings in there.
Yeah, this is all the same stuff you did with the SD40 on the Weathering and Detailing videos.
Right.
Very cool.
So before I sand the top of this and possibly obliterate any detail, I'm going to drill out the holes where the lift rings go, and also for a new grab iron.
Yeah, you can kind of still see it, right?
Right. I can see the spot where I cut the little nub off that they had molded into the shell. Also, while I'm up here, I'm going to cut off the molded on sand filler hatch.
Oh, they have an aftermarket part for that too?
Yeah. Plus, because the Santa Fe paint job is the way it is, it's actually easier to paint if the sand filler hatch isn't there. So now I'm going to start sanding, and I'm going to try to not sand off the rivet detail.
Yeah.
So
just gotta be real careful, huh?
Yeah.
Careful and slow.
Right. So I got the roof pretty much cleaned up in this section.
Yeah, it's looking pretty smooth.
Yeah. The holes aren't perfectly round, but that doesn't really matter because the fan bases are going to cover it up. So I haven't actually put any of the fans or any of those other details on yet. I'm going to wait to apply details until I'm done hacking on the shell.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't want to knock anything off.
Right. So the next thing I'm going to remove is this piece, because I'm going to replace this with a Canon part that I think looks better.
Okay.
So there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could just sand it off, but that's a lot of material to get through.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by drilling a series of holes around the edge.
What are you going to do? Cut from hole to hole?
Yeah. Basically.
Oh, I see what you mean. So you're kind of perforating it around the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. That's a lot of drilling, dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, how many holes are there? About 40?
I don't know.
That's a lot.
I didn't count them, but there's a lot. Anyway, my idea now is to take my sprue cutters and just cut between them.
Yep. I thought you were going to drill a hole and then use some kind of a little saw to go from hole to hole or something like that.
Yeah, I don't have a saw that could get in there.
Yeah.
Even these are a little bit... I'm not sure I'm really getting through the whole thing here, but we'll see.
Well, if you hit it hard enough with a hammer, it'll come out.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do that.
So you should have glued those fans on first and then hit this part with a hammer.
Yeah, that would be really good.
That would be very productive work.
Yeah. So after I did that, it just popped out.
Yeah.
And now there's a little bit of a part that sticks up right here left. I'm going to grind that down. So now what I have to do is just to file this part down until it's flush with this little part of the roof up here.
Yeah, it looks really rough.
Yeah. Now if I had a piece of plate glass or something, you could actually put a piece of sandpaper on that and turn the engine upside down and just sand it that way. Mm-hmm. But I don't have one handy, so I'm just going to use a file and just start going at it.
Yeah.
At least there's not as much material to get through this way, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I've cleaned this up with the file and progressively finer grades of sandpaper till I got down to 400. And there's no more lip here. This is all flush, one level. Standard operating procedures? Right. So eventually, not right now, but this is the Canon part that I'm going to put on. This is a number 1353. It's an inertial filter hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll just glue on top of there. But as with the fans, I'm going to leave this off until I'm done doing surgery on the body of the engine.
All right.
So in order to fit the new cab and subbase, I need to get rid of the existing nose and cab subbase. And I'll start with this little piece right here, which is separate.
Oh, that's nice. I thought you were going to have to cut everything again.
Well, I will. That's about the only thing that comes off like that.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to rough cut with the motor tool first.
Wow, you weren't kidding. It's really all gone, Dan.
Yep. So at this point, this is a little bit fragile because, as you can see, you've only got these two thin pieces of plastic.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, so you want to be really careful now handling this, that you don't break either of these. This old blue box plastic is fairly tough, but even so, it has its limits.
Okay.
So I've cut about as much as I dare with the power tool.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to start using the knife to whittle it down.
So is it, again, just trying to make it as flat as possible so that you can sand it smooth again?
Right.
Okay.
All right, so I'm pretty much finished sanding. It's not even really critical, like how fine a sandpaper I use on the deck, because that's all. I'm going to cover it up with walkway tread.
Right. So now I did want to mention for the viewers that we did kind of skip over the sanding part. We showed it every other time.
It's the same process.
Yeah.
We just thought it would. You've seen it 3 or 4 times now. It's Now, one thing I did do was that when I was cutting with the Dremel, I took a little bit of a divot out of the shell right here. Now, this is going to be... There's going to be a step over this area anyway, so this probably isn't even really necessary, but I'm just going to put a little putty on there.
Okay. Oh, the old green putty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good old Squadron green putty.
We had a good laugh at this putty a few years ago. We were working on a weathering and detailing video. I don't recall which one it was, but I was reading the tube that it comes in, and somewhere on the tube there's a warning that you're not supposed to smoke it.
Yeah, I don't know why you would even think of that, but whatever.
Yeah.
They're trying to cover their bases, I guess.
See, and in case you thought I was only joking, I'm not. Do you see it right there? Do not smoke. I'm just imagining someone sticking this stuff in a pipe and trying to smoke it, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd even do that.
Yeah. Further down in the list of warnings, it says something about how it causes kidney and brain damage and stuff. What are you bringing over here, Dan?
I don't know.
Jeez.
All right, next I'm going to cut off the cast-on air reservoirs and these mounting lugs the same way I did the other stuff.
Okay, so motor tool, then
yeah,
knife, and then sand. Okay, yeah. We'll be back when that's done, unless I think of something else brilliant to talk about.
So I want to fill in what's left of the hole where the mounting lug was. In order to make that a little easier, I'm going to file it square because it's round right now. So I've cut a little piece of styrene and glued it in here as a plug. And then what I need to do is put some putty on that.
Right. You got to fill the seams or whatever the edge is, right?
Right. I usually like to let putty dry overnight before I sand it. Sometimes you can get away with sanding it sooner, but I like to make sure it's really, really dry. So anyway, we can maybe leave it here this time, and we'll pick it up next time. At this point, most of the drastic cutting on the shell is finished.
Right.
So pretty soon it'll be time to start adding stuff instead of cutting stuff off. And there'll still be a few more minor things we have to tweak, but this is probably a good place to stop for now.
Oh, all right. Then I guess that'll do it for this month's video podcast. And we will be back in June.
Yeah, cool.
And we'll see everybody then. So, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.